Hey guys, my name is Jay. Welcome to my channel. This is where I like to share my art projects with you, and today I'm going to be working on part 2 of the Spider-Man themed Air Force Ones. I'm going to be painting the Spider-Gwen themed shoe, and if you haven't seen part 1, check that out in the link below. Otherwise, we'll swing into it. Swing into it. Swing into it. Spider-Man, of course. So as in the last video, we've prepped the leather with some acetone and we've masked up the areas we don't want to get paint on. Did this off screen so we get straight into painting. And we want to use a variety of colours that tie the other shoe in with this one so they look like a matching pair. And we'll just change them around slightly just to match Spider-Gwen's theme a little bit. So a bit of turquoise, a little bit of yellow in there, and some bold reds. Now I decided to go a little more dominant with the turquoise, and it is an opaque paint, so it's quite easy to go over some of the other colours without them mixing and looking a little muddy, so I always keep that in mind when overlapping. I'm also going to do the scattered particle look, where the main colours kind of disperse out onto the neighbouring colours, and for the foreground look I'm going to use pink rather than the yellow on the Miles Morales shoe. Okay, so now we're at the planning stage of Spider-Gwen. Now we want to just do some rough sketches to work out her pose and create a little bit of movement on the shoe, as well as make sure that it will fit in the space we've got to work with. So I like to do a couple of ideas and see which one works the best. Once I'm happy with the pose, I go in with a pen and just do a nice crisp outline. I don't need to worry about too many details because you just want the core components of what make up her character translatable onto the shoe. As you can see, we're at the point now where we can position it on the shoe a little bit better. If it's easier to change the size, just scan it, shrink it down and reprint it. And this is great to use as the stencil to outline the character, very similar to the method we used in the last video. Now we want to cut piece by piece out and add in those different components of the image. And once that's done, we'll start blocking in the colors. Now the two main colours of Spider-Gwen, as you probably know, are white and black, and then it's got a hint of turquoise and a hint of pink, or like a really dark red. So without worrying about shadows or highlights, we just want to get these colours in, and it'll build the overall shape of the character. Now for the white parts on her costume, I'm actually using a really light grey that I've mixed up. Now the reason for this is because the white is a little bit translucent, so the grey helps it cover that background colour, and also it acts as a bit of a mid-tone, so I can add the pure white to the highlighted areas later on, so the grey acts as the mid-tone. Now that I'm happy with that, I'm just going to add the same turquoise I used for the background for the shoe to create that relationship. And you can see I've got them in different positions as well, so the same colours aren't overlapping on the foreground and background. And I'm pretty sure I did that deliberately. In a similar style to the Miles Morales character, I'm going to choose two coloured light sources to add some edge highlights on here. I'm going to do like a neon green for the right hand side and a really light pink for the left hand side. I just think it'll just make the image look a little crisper and make it look a little dynamic as well, a little more interesting to look at. And this also helps indicate the different shapes in the darker areas, like her pants, where you can outline sort of the edges of her thighs and the knees that would otherwise be lost to the eye. Rightio, I've used a bit of pinstriping tape to create the flow of webbing from one hand to the other, and just used some white paint to run along the edge of that tape. And then once I remove it, you've got that kind of guideline, and work out where I want that kind of curling and flicking out of her hand, where it's sort of flowing loosely in the wind. And also the taut piece of webbing that's leaving her hand that she's obviously shot it at and is pulling herself along, also creating that idea of movement. And it's also very similar in design to the Miles Morales, where he's shooting multiple webs out of his hands towards the toe of the shoe. Spider-Gwen is doing a very similar thing. Now, also similar to the Miles Morales shoe, I want to have her logo on the inner side of the shoe, so I've printed that out and I'm just going to cut that and use the sheet of paper as a mask to very lightly dust with the airbrush the image onto there, and then I can quite easily trace around that. It's just a bit of an easier way than having to trace around all the individual legs with a pen straight off of a stencil. Now, if I had a stencil cutter, I'd probably print it out on the stencil and just use that to trace around, or airbrush using it as a mask. I don't, so doing it old school. Once that's cut out, I'm just going to stick some masking tape on the back there and position it where I want, and then we will mask all around it so I don't get any overspray anywhere I don't want it to go. Now the trick here is just to put a very fine mist over the stencil. Because I'm using black, it will show up quite clearly underneath once you remove it. And I want to hand paint this, so I just want it as a guide on where the shapes are. Now going back in with the airbrush, I'm just going to spray some of that turquoise around the shape of the spider, not going too far outside, and then I'm going to repaint the black over the top to really make it look solid again. Now at this point I felt like it needed something else, so I'm just going to add some pink webbing behind it, and I think we're pretty much done. On to the reveal, and cheers for hanging out. A quick shout out to Queensland Networks. The editing on this video was made possible on a PC built by them. For your PC and gaming needs, click the link below. And also, if you enjoyed this content and you want to be directly responsible for helping this channel grow, please visit my Patreon page. All donations go back into the channel, help me buy paint, materials, equipment, and maybe one day that stencil cutter.